Assalamu alaikum everyone and a very good evening. Welcome to Ababil English Level 1. In today's video, we are going to discuss a few very important tenses. But before we do that, let's do a quick recap of what we studied in the previous lecture. If you remember, we discussed future simple and future progressive tense. We talked about present perfect, and we also discussed their uses. There was another important thing in the last lecture, which was about the usage of since and for. And of course, last but not the least, daily dose. Alright, let's move to our topic today. Before discussing past and future perfect, let's have a look on present perfect sentences again. If you look at these sentences, you can easily recall that we discussed the usage of helping verb has and have and you, and of course has with he, she, it or third form, and also the third form of main verb. For example, we have stayed in the pool since 9 o'clock. Mark has studied 2 foreign languages. My father has just gone to bed. So in each of these examples, we have used either has or have according to the subject, third form of the main verb, and the object. Alright, let's move to past perfect. Again, it's very easy. It's just using a few very simple components. For example, the subject and the helping verb is had. No matter what is the subject, you're just going to use had with the third form of verb and the object. I'm giving you just one example here, and we're going to build a project work around this one. You have to build and come up with different examples. So the example is the players had lost heart before the match finished. If you notice, the subject is plural but helping verb has not changed. We're using had. The players had lost heart before the match finished. And of course, the general rule, which is whenever you have to make a negative sentence, you just add a not right after the helping verb. No matter what tense you're using, you're always going to add a not right after the helping verb to make a negative sentence of any tense. I'm sure you've noticed this pattern till now. And after that, the third form of verb and the object. While making interrogatives, you place the helping verb at the start of the sentence, then comes the subject, and then the main verb. Had the players lost heart before the match finished? We've just discussed one example for each sentence, and you're going to work around it in the project work. Before we move on, let's discuss the uses of past perfect, that in what situations you can use the past perfect. For example, a completed action before a different past action. When we got to the station, the train had already left. By the time she got to the beach, the sun had set. The sun had set and the train had already left are the past actions. But before, we are talking about the action before this completed action, which is when we got to the station. When she got to the beach. In this situation, you're going to use past perfect. If you see in the second part of the sentence, right after the comma, using had with the third form of the verb, had left, had set. Another use could be a period of time before an event in the past. For example, we had owned our house for 20 years before we sold it. So before we sold it is an event that happened in the past, and we're talking about the time period before we sold it. So we had owned it for 20 years before we sold it. And another example could be, I had worn that watch for 10 years before I gave it to my son. Now, I gave it to my son is a completed event, happened in the past, and I'm talking about the time period before this completed action, which is 10 years. So in this situation, I'm again going to use the past perfect. Right. in the if clause of the third conditional. If you had studied for the test, you wouldn't have failed. You wouldn't have failed is the second clause, and if clause is if you had studied for the test. We are again going to use the past perfect here. And last but not the least, I skipped it deliberately in the start, which is reported speech. Before we move on to reported speech, I just wanted to mention a very important thing here, which is, if you have noticed, in few of the videos lately I have been increasing the proportion of English communication every day gradually, because I believe that you have been working on the learned concepts, you have been reading stuff to increase the comprehension, the listening practice, and slowly and gradually the speaking practice, inshallah. So that is the reason that I am increasing the daily dose of English communication, delivering the lecture in English language every day in small chunks, because I want you to understand and to develop a knack of it by doing chunk by chunk each day. I don't expect that you will give your 110% in week 1, but inshallah we'll get a hang of it. So, and that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna go bilingual. Of course I will whenever required. So let's get back to reported speech. We use reported speech when we're talking about direct or indirect sentences. For example, if someone's talking to me, let's take the example of Kim here. If Kim is talking to me and I am going to exactly quote whatever he said, whatever Kim stated, which means Kim said, comma, and in quotation marks or punctuation marks, I'm going to write the exact sentence of Kim. For example, Kim said, I went to the party. Now, you read these form of sentences in novels and stories and dialogues, but when I'm telling this sentence to some third party, I'm gonna say, Kim told me she had gone to the party. तो ये इनडायरेक्ट स्पीच हो जाएगी. डायरेक्ट स्पीच का मतलब है कि आप एग्जैक्टली वर्ड कॉपी कर रहे हैं स्पीकर के, लेकिन इनडायरेक्ट स्पीच का मतलब है कि आपने अपने से रिपोर्ट किया, आपने ये नहीं कहा कि एग्जैक्टली उसने ये वर्ड कहे थे. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, Ben told me that he had never been to Disneyland before. Ben ने मुझे बताया था कि वो कभी डिज्नीलैंड नहीं गया था. इसका अगर डायरेक्ट स्पीच हम बनाएंगे तो वो क्या होगा? Ben said, I have never been to Disneyland before. ये एग्जैक्ट डायलॉग है Ben का, और ये नॉवेल्स में, स्टोरीज में आप इस तरह से पढ़ते हैं. लेकिन जब हम उसको इनडायरेक्ट नरेशन में कन्वर्ट करते हैं तो फिर हम कहते हैं Ben ने मुझे ये बताया था कि उसने ऐसे नहीं किया था, एट्सेट्रा. और ये डायरेक्ट, इनडायरेक्ट, एक्टिव, पैसिव हम कमिंग लेक्चर्स में इंशाल्लाह कवर करेंगे. बट बिफोर दैट, मेक श्योर दैट यू नो all the tenses that we have discussed so far 110%, and they are on your fingertips and you know all of these tenses inside out. You have to make sure of it, and then we'll discuss active, passives and direct, indirect. Alright, let's move on. Future perfect tense, again very simple. Just have to follow this formula. I've given one example here. Stop the video here, pause it here and read it out for positive, negative and interrogatives, and then we'll do the project work question around this one as well. You have to use the subject and will have been. Will have been with the ing form. Alright. Uses of future perfect. To talk about an action that will finish before a certain time in the future. For example, by 8 o'clock tomorrow I will have taken off for Japan. You're talking about some action that is going to happen in the future before a certain time, यानी before 8 o'clock. 8 बजे से पहले पहले या 8 बजे मैं निकल गया हूँगा, मैं जापान के लिए निकल चुका हूँगा, उसके लिए future perfect इस्तेमाल होता है. She will have learned Chinese before she moves to China. This is something that you're talking about, an action that will be completed before and the event takes place. For example, कि चाइना जाने से पहले उसने चाइनीज सीख ली होगी, वो सीख चुकी होगी और उसके बाद वो चाइना जाएगी। दोनों फ्यूचर की चीज़ें हैं, लेकिन एक एक्शन के होने से पहले आप दूसरे एक्शन को रिपोर्ट कर रहे हो। तीसरा यूज़ बहुत कॉमन है, ये हम लोग अक्सर करते हैं, विच इज़ assuming you're not at that place at that time। आप किसी जगह पे प्रेजेंट नहीं हो, बट यू आर जस्ट इमेजिनिंग, थिंकिंग अबाउट इट एंड assuming कि ये हो गया होगा। फॉर एग्जाम्पल कि अब तक तो मेहमान होटल पहुंच चुके होंगे, द गेस्ट्स विल हैव अराइव्ड एट द होटल बाय नाउ। अब तक तो मेहमान होटल में पहुंच चुके होंगे। ये क्या है? टू एक्सप्रेस कन्विक्शन दैट समथिंग हैपेंड इन द नियर पास्ट। नियर पास्ट मीन्स विद इन अ डे, मे बी विद इन अ वीक। तो उसके लिए आप जब अंदाज़ा लगाते हैं या सोचते हैं, अपने आप से बात कर रहे होते हैं कि ऐसे हो गया होगा, दैट इज़ ऑल्सो फ्यूचर परफेक्ट टेंस। ऑलराइट, व्हाट डू वी हैव नेक्स्ट? आई हैव ड्रॉन अ टेबल for comparison of past perfect and future perfect